Welcome back. So I want some kind of validation. This is not a good way of explaining to my customer that something is wrong by using JSON. Of course, I need to instead have some kind of visible setup that can explain to the customer there's something wrong. You need to fill out the fields. You need to do this and this. What we're going to do is we're going to try to jump into Angular.io, docs, fundamentals, forms, form validation down here. And there we are going to try and build something similar to this, where we're going to figure out if we have a control, and we do have one called first name and one called last name, how to actually explain to the customer using some kind of warning message from Bootstrap to actually explain something is wrong. So we're going to kind of build this right here. Now, just to explain it up front, the outer layer right here that everything is wrapped into is kind of the one place that will show the warning, and then depending on what kind of error you have, you'll show different warning messages, one of these three right here, or you'll show none at all if everything is working. So let's start out by just defining our div right here that can show a class that explains to Bootstrap that we want to show an error right here. So we're jumping into the code, and we're going to, right below this first name label right here, we're going to add a new div. And that div is actually going to contain the class that I just copied called alert danger. And let's just put in a hi right here to see what that actually means. Let's try and jump into our view and have a look. Now we have a hi that looks kind of like the alert we had before, right? That makes sense because this is a kind of alert. You can see that right here, alert danger. We're going to change that later, but let's just keep it as an alert for now. Jumping back to the code, what's the next thing we want to do? We want to explain when we want the alert to actually show up. So we'll add an ngIf. And we'll just do it the simple way right now. We'll go into our div right here and we'll say ngIf, right? And there we want to say something a bit different from their example because they have the name available right here in the input, but we are actually using something different. We're using the customer group. So we're going to say, I want to use the customer group controls to actually find a specific alert, and that and that control that I'm looking for is actually the first name control, this guy right here, right? The first name control. Now on that guy, I can say I want to show this alert only if it is, for instance, invalid. Then I want to show an alert, right? I don't want to show it if everything is perfect. I just want to show it if it's invalid. Let me just do this in a few lines. Jumping back to our view here, and let's see what happens now. Right now it's invalid. I can't see why, except I can see down here that something is wrong. So I'm going to put in at least a character and a second character, and it goes away. Now notice the setup is kind of wrong right now. It's one line, two line. We'll figure that out later. But notice as soon as there isn't actually an error, it'll show up the alert. Right now the alert says hi. Let's try and change that. Back to the form validation, because now we have the outer one up and running, explaining there's something wrong. If you do not want this to pop up right away, you can add these lines right here that says you're not going to show this until you actually changed the input somehow. Let me try and do it. Let me just try and copy this into my code to try and show what that is all about. Right now we have our code right here for the customer group. If it's invalid, you want it to do this. Let me just make a few lines here just to make this easier to read for you. I'm going to paste in the other stuff that I had, and there I'm going to do the same. I'm going to say you want to show this as invalid if this is invalid and it's dirty or it's touched, right? So you're only going to show this alert now if somebody actually changed it and touched it or touched it inside the view. Let's try and go in here again. Nothing is here right now. As soon as I do something, if there's an error, it'll pop up, right? I keep typing, now it's gone. But because I changed this, if I remove everything, it'll actually keep showing because it's dirty now. It's changed. Somebody touched it, right? So that's why these guys are also in there in the guide. So now we've kind of set up this guy for actually showing the alerts. Let's try and put in another alert, a real alert. And one of them that I want to show is if the name actually has an error, I want to show name is required, right? So if it has a required error, I want to show that. So I'll just copy this in again. I know I'm kind of lazy here, but that's all I want to write. So instead of the hi right here, I'm going to paste this guy in here. And again, I'm going to change the control right here to being name into actually being my first name. If that has the error specifically called required, I want it to show name is required. Let's try and jump into the code, and it's not there because I'll just put in stuff. Now it's changed and dirty, right? So I'll remove this again. Now you'll see the name is required. And notice I didn't see anything for the to required because that's not in there, that message. It's only the name required, and this guy's blank because I don't have a message for that. I just know there's an error. So you have to try and understand that there's a difference between having the overall alert and then deciding what error to actually show. So we need this error as well. We need to say that if the error is min length, you haven't succeeded on putting in enough characters, you need to show that. So let's put that in there as well as the final thing in this video. Name must be at least, and I have 2 characters in there. And I also want to use, again, the first name right here and put that in here. There we go. Now we have the first name available. Try and jumping back to the code, and now you'll see that if I put in nothing, nothing is touched, nothing is dirty, nothing is changed. I'll put in a J, now I get this one. Name must be at least 2 characters long. Put another one, it's gone. I fixed it, removing everything, and I'll get the other one, name is required. Now of course the save button will not work until we have 2 characters and the save is actually ready to use. So let's just fix the last thing here for avoiding the jumping around back and forth stuff. So I'm just going to go in and say my labels right here should at least be 12 long, call MD 12, and I'm going to do the same for the second label down here, sorry, up here. There's the second label right here. Those 2 labels are now actually 12 columns long, meaning they grab up all the space. And let me just also take the button and push it all the way, pull it all the way through the right. So let's go down to the button down here. It's a button info and I want it to be pulled to the right. There we go. Now we're kind of done for this lesson, and we can start seeing that as I start typing, I'll get errors until I actually fix the information. Now, of course, we can just do the same for last name. I'll just go and do that. So see you in the next lesson where we'll have even more fun.